Welcome to this episode of the Superyacht Laundry podcast, coming to you live from my kitchen due to technical issues. So anybody who's actually watching this, you can see my kitchen, although I've blurred it because it's untidy. Today I am joined by the beautiful Sophie Barber from Vela Recruitment. I've said that right, haven't I?
You have. Well done.
No, you have to. We were just talking, like, where did Vela come from? What was the thinking for that name?
Well, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to think of a name for their company, but it's almost impossible to find one that someone else has not already taken. So, I came up with loads of fantastic ideas. I'd be like, Mum, I've got the name. This is it. I've tested it. It's going to be brilliant. And I'd ask my good friend ChatGPT if anyone else had used that name. And of course, many people had. So, after many things, we were like, what about star signs? What about anything? And then my mum was like, what about star constellations? Maybe one of those. And so eventually we found Vela, which is actually, I think it's like the shape of a sailboat or something like that, something vaguely related. And I thought, yes, that's the one. No one else has got it. And so there we are, Vela Recruitment. And,
Vela.
I thought short and sharp.
It is, I suppose, because the thing is, domain stuff is super cheap. So people are like, oh, that's a really good name. And then they buy the domain and they never do anything with it. Do you know what I mean? So there'll be tons out there of these names that nobody's ever done anything with it.
Well, exactly. Some of them are really expensive when you have a look on it, like GoDaddy, all the domain names. Some of them are like a fortune. Anyway, I found this one and it was free. Well, not free, but it was cheap.
Well, with any startup business, money is precious. So let's go into the beginning. So obviously, I've known you for a long time, and you've been on the podcast under a different guise previously.
Yeah.
But just give a little bit of a summary who Sophie is and your journey, just to kind of refresh everybody.
Okay. Well, yes, of course, we've known each other for a while, haven't we? And I have been on the pod before, so I'm delighted to come back. So thank you very much. So a bit about me. So I used to work on the boats. I did about 3.5 years working on the yachts. I started off as a sole stew on a little sailboat with an all-French crew who are miles older than me. So as you can imagine, was super fun. But I survived the season, and then it opened up to more doors, and eventually I was chief stew on a 40-metre, and then I switched to the deck. And then with my last role being a 60-metre as a deckhand, which I was super proud of because this was like, a million years ago. And there weren't so many people on deck, so that was fantastic. And then I'd always sort of thought about recruitment. When I was in Palma when I was looking for jobs, and I met some of the girls in the recruitment houses, and I always thought, oh, that looks quite glamorous, it looks quite fun. I sort of had it in my mind, but it was just in the back of my mind. I thought, oh, that could be fun in the future. And it wasn't until I came to On Tea where I got my first opportunity with the lovely Blue Water, and I was on the reception, and that's where it all went from there. And so it's actually been 9 years that I've been doing Superyacht recruitment. So it's a long time, actually.
That is a long time. And obviously, starting out Blue Water reception, I went to Blue Water reception a million years ago when I was on the job hunt. We used to have crew queuing out the door. That was part of, back in the day, before the internet. No, not before the internet, but do you know what I mean? It was more people were supposed to physically turn up in On Tea.
It was nice when people used to come into the office and we used to see everyone, and you get all the experienced crew coming in the old days. I'm talking like almost a decade ago. It used to be lovely. You get everyone would come into the office, everyone would come and meet you. And now, of course, with technology and people being further away, video calls, but which is sort of similar. It's better than a phone call, but it's not the same as meeting someone face to face, but close as.
Close as. Like, for anybody who's not, obviously most people will know, but like obviously Blue Water is really close to Blue Lady. So basically you do that and then you go to the Blue Lady straight away afterwards to drown your sorrows that you haven't got a job yet.
Well, sometimes you do the Blue Lady first and pluck up a bit of courage to then go into Blue Lady.
I don't know whether you'll probably be a bit too happy if you went to the Blue Lady first. You'd be like, hi guys. No, I never did it first. Definitely afterwards.
Oh, those were the days.
They were the days. But, obviously, like you said, you've been in the game for a long time. The game's changed quite a lot I would, I would say, where, I mean, even just simple things like dog walking, virtually impossible in a lot of marinas now.
I think there's been a lot of changes to how recruitment works, and in terms of how crew view recruitment as well. There's so many more options for them on their doorstep all the time. You've got Yacht Spot. So I find, well, I think most recruiters find that lots of people have their one eye open for another job in their back of their mind. They're on their job, they think it's nice, but what if something more amazing came along, which makes the job of a recruiter very difficult, and also the job of the yacht, because before in our day you didn't have these options. You couldn't just open your computer and see loads of jobs. You had your connection with whatever agency you were with. You have to give them a call, check in. It wasn't easy. So I think that sort of changes the mentality of the crew. I think, particularly some more in the younger ones, I'd say. Everyone's always got their eye out for that dream rotational position, or somewhere super far away, or. So I think that's something that's definitely changed. But I think the way recruitment's changed as well, because with these platforms that you've got, say, like Yachtspot and the likes of that, and social media and things like that, I think that the yachts themselves are not using agents for the junior roles. Really, they find that they can source them themselves. Through Yachtspot, word of mouth. Day workers. They're not really willing to pay for those roles. So what we get instead, which is actually better, are the HOD roles. The more higher senior positions, which require that sort of human element that perhaps the
Yeah.
platform can't provide. It takes more time, it takes more vetting, it takes more understanding. Then it's more challenging to find the right HOD than it is to find the right junior, really, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think that's it's actually beneficial to us recruiters, because I really like a nice juicy HOD role, and I don't like as much a junior role. It's not quite as exciting, although I love recruitment. I love recruiting everyone, really.
I suppose there's not much with the junior roles. There's not actually much to dig into. Do you know what I mean? For a HOD role, you'll be doing, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Obviously, you know, if we go back 8 years or so, references were the main. People brought in their proof of certificate, but references were probably the main gauge of whether anybody was actually any good. Now, fast forward to where we are now, there's a lot of other ways to now prove. Do you know what I mean? We now got proof of certificates, proof of ENG1, because there are individuals that get, fakes. They're, references and saying you were on a certain boat at a certain time. It's actually a lot easier now to validate than ever before.
Absolutely, but I think the challenge with the reference is that the person who are calling for a reference, sometimes I think they don't want to tarnish a person's reputation, especially when they're talking to a recruiter. So as an experienced recruiter, you sort of get a vibe. You think there's something here, and I tend to do a bit of digging and try and get the sort of the juice out of it. But it's not always easy to get a truly honest reference from everybody. And if people aren't giving you the truth, then how are you supposed to know that they're the right candidate? And I have on occasion, not so much recently, but in the past, I think when you work for a bigger agency as well, they're more concerned about, they don't want to blacklist someone through the whole agency by giving them a negative reference. Not that anyone blacklists them, but you know what I mean. Give them a negative reference that might restrict them from quite a lot of other jobs. So it can happen sometimes that if they have a chat with the captain directly, that you might get a different reference to the one that the recruiter got, a bit more truthful. Not so much, I think, these days, because I think people are maybe valuing honesty and seeing the importance of the references, because if you give someone a reference and then they get put on a boat, but that reference you gave them wasn't correct, then it's on you, because you've said they were great, and then when they go on the boat they weren't great. When you've lied about the reference, it comes back. So it's a tricky thing, references, really. And it's quite a personal thing as well, because it might to do with the relationship that you have with that person. Perhaps it wasn't the right fit for you on that boat, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily not right for someone else. So it's important to get lots of different references, not just one reference check. Check, a few different, three, I would say, is a good number, 3 last boats, to get a well-rounded overview, because it might just be that it wasn't a good fit on one boat, so you might get a slightly iffy reference, but actually you might have an amazing reference from your other 2 boats. So it's it's challenging. That's definitely one of the main challenges
Oh,
of the, I think.
Also, when you've left a boat for a bit, the dust settles a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So, like your third, 3 boats ago, things have kind of changed and situations might be viewed differently. I think from my perspective, there's been lots of talk about the recruitment side of things, obviously, in light of a few cases. And, obviously, I'm doing the female yacht crew safety survey,
Hmm.
in relation to women. I think it's really interesting how it brought to my attention that certain people still get good references when, they have got terrible reputations in the industry. From an insider, like, do recruiters, you guys know bad apples. I'm sure you
Yeah.
hear stories of bad apples, but how is that
Please.
viewed, like, from a practice? Yeah, but how is that viewed in a practical sense? Because, like you said, you don't like blacklisting people, but how do most recruiters deal with those kind of issues?
Mm, I guess it's difficult, really, because as I say, as at to be MLC, we are not allowed to blacklist anyone. That is really important. You don't blacklist anyone. Number one rule. But negative references, I guess, it's disappointing because quite often you have a lovely interview with someone, you think, fabulous, I've got the right person for the job, they're going to be great, and then to get a negative reference is like, oh, but I never take just the one reference. It might be a negative reference, and I think, right, unless it's a really terrible story. And you dig back and you dig in a couple of other references and you see. And I think the importance of being a recruiter is integrity, which is sort of like the heart of one of my company values. Is that you are truthful, so you don't oversell a candidate. You present the candidate warts and all. This guy's fabulous, but there was this little thing on a reference I must just say. But he's had these other great references, so so you're giving the full picture. The same way that you don't sell the job to someone without telling them the challenges, because what's the point? Then they get on board and they've been lied about a job that's not what they said it was, and that the boat has got there might have been a why the chief was let go because of some altercation with something something that you need to maybe make them aware of before they jump on board, or the owners are tricky, or things that it's all about acting with integrity on both sides. So it's open communication
Yeah.
and letting both sides know. And I think that's one of the key ways that I work, I think.
Yeah. I think, like you said, just the simplicity of trying to be as open, as transparent as possible. Just as much as the candidates being open about, you know, what they're wanting and what they're expecting. It goes vice versa. And I do, like, I've worked on boats. I mean, I've been fired from a boat because I clashed. Um, I've told the story many times. I got fired because of cold McDonald's. Literally, it was just the cold McDonald's was the end of my career on that boat. So I literally lost my mind.
What happened with the cold McDonald's?
Just tired. Just, what, like, we'd been working constantly for 2 months. Everybody was tired. Everybody was niggling at each other. And I, there was everybody was in a great. It was just too much. Like, impossible guests, very demanding, not realistic. Um, and it all culminated. All I expected, because obviously I was also slightly older going on
Mhm.
board. I was a slightly older stewardess. I just expect to be fed. We're doing insane hours. And I'm like, I don't mind doing insane hours, but, like, you need to provide sustenance for me to maintain this kind of work level. Um, and yeah, this one time, rather than doing a crew meal, they brought back McDonald's, but it was stone cold. And like, McDonald's is, all
Oh,
right when it's hot, but
yeah,
McDonald's fries freezing cold are just disgusting.
they are.
And
That's
I
slime.
literally, it's just gross, and they were like, "Oh, we can microwave it." I'm like, "I'm not microwaving it." Like, and literally, I was
Disgusting.
just exhausted. My head exploded. I was like, "This is just, you
Too
know,
much.
cheers, just too much. Like, I'm not working under these conditions any
Nice.
longer."
But
I didn't know, but so, like, so yeah, it kind of ended my journey on that boat. Just there was the bare minimum,
we've
and
all
it
been
was
there
just not hitting.
when it's I had one where the guests were on board. I think they were on board for 3 months, like straight, and just the monotony and the Groundhog Day and the just exhaustion is just really kicking in, and everybody is just a bit antsy. You can't help it. Everybody's just a bit fed up and a bit tired and a bit hungry. Yeah, and all you really want is what's for lunch. What is for lunch? Because that's the most exciting part of the whole day.
That's all you've got. Like in the whole day, like you're when you have your break, you're going to sleep
Exactly.
because you're running on like bugger all sleep. So
Yeah,
you're going to sleep in your break. So it's not like you're doing anything to kind of distract your mind or wind down or all of that kind of stuff because you've literally been working for weeks and weeks on end.
and you're exhausted.
So like meal times, just like the small things just end up being really, really important. So it's, like you said, references kind of only get you so far and also only tell part of the story. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
crew
I
that
mean,
could get on if they're just doing 2 week trips, you put them under pressure and give them a 6-7 week trip, no breaks. With the best will in the world, they'll fall out.
exactly, and that's where the tensions arise. And so, yeah, you have to sort of think about the references and sort of bear in mind those sort of things. What kind of boat was it? What was the program like? For example, someone might have had a reference that they didn't really cope very well on a really busy charter boat, but actually they could be fantastic on a private boat where they've got a bit more of a rhythm. And it's there's lots of things to consider when you're analysing the references, basically.
Yeah. I think it's like you're trying to like it must be quite difficult. You've got to I think women might fare better when it comes to doing jobs like this because you've got to go with your gut instinct, read between the lines of what somebody's actually saying. Do you know what I mean? Like they're kind of saying something but they're not saying it at the same time. I think, especially females, we're quite attuned to that, you know.
Yeah, you know,
Um
with the more experience you have, the more you can read between the lines, and the questions to ask, and you have more confidence to ask the questions. Like quite often say, I'm getting a bit of a vibe here. Is there something you're not telling me or something you don't want to say? Did it not end well? You can sort of, I think when I was a junior recruiter, I perhaps wouldn't have had the confidence to ask those sort of questions and probe, and because you're just so worried about not sort of getting it wrong with the captain and making sure you've asked all the right questions. But once you've been doing it for a long time, you know what questions to ask. It's more about the feeling, thing that stands out.
I think one of the things I've always wanted, I was thinking about like because obviously I've spoken to recruiters before and even yourself, and I was just like, what's in, what do I not know? Like, and I was thinking about relationships on board. There's actually been somebody put out an article the other day about, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't think there's any way to prevent relationships on board. Like,
No.
there is no way to prevent them from happening, but what's the general consensus? Has it changed? Like I worked on boats and they were 100% no relationships on board. You had to go and find a specific boat that was up for couples.
Yeah.
um but has that changed, or is that still kind of like either a boat's up for it or not?
Mm, I think it very much depends on the boat. I think it's a bit like with more rotation being added, more people are trying to think of ways to increase crew longevity. And in many ways, that might be if they have their partner on board, you might get those guys on board for a long time. So, if you get, but equally, you might lose them in an instant. So there are definitely some boats that are like, no, I'm not having couples on board, and I don't know whether it's because the captain's been burnt before, or something's happened, because it is a risk. You could lose two of your key players at once, or you could have two of your key players that stay for like 3 years and do an amazing job, and great for morale for the team. It really is boat by boat. It's and most people get hired in a couples role by already being on board as yourself, and then a positions opens up, and that's normally the way it works. I don't, we do get couples positions, and of course, but it's they don't often come at the same time, unless of course a couple on board leaves and then they both leave at the same time. So yeah, it's really difficult to say, but I think it's probably moving towards allowing that more because again of this longevity thing, that people want a better work-life balance. People want so they want to have their partner on board. They want to have rotation. They expect more than what we used to have in the old days. We were quite happy with our 35 days leave, and and that was that. but not
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean, like, rotation what? Like, when I was on board, like, rotation was like an urban myth, like, there was a few
Yeah,
captains that got it.
well,
That was
exactly.
it.
I would never dream about asking for rotation. It was like I was just so happy to have a job and to be working on a boat and
Yeah.
having a time. You know, I was thrilled. Like, look at me working on a super yacht. Woo! I'm so snazzy. Yeah, it's
The romance thing on board, I think, the only reason I asked is because it's come up, recently, for me, because obviously doing the safety survey and stuff like that. And obviously just talking about, like, periods of time when you're on board, the deckhand does become more attractive if you haven't been off the boat and seen another male for 6
like big goggles,
weeks.
isn't it? It's like boat goggles.
You're
Yeah,
like, somebody put up a meme about it the other day. You're like, yeah, it's but why you because obviously this plays into female safety. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's how relationships happen on board naturally, and then where these boundaries, need to be put in. And also because you're in personal space, if you're a couple on board and you're in the crew mess together, you might be preparing food, or do you know what I mean?
mm,
You're acting with each other, probably not in a more coupley way than a professional way. So we're doing a lot of research into, like, where the boundaries are. Do you know what I mean? And also, like, I really would like to do some research into, like, if you're a chief, a stewardess, and you're really into a male colleague, and obviously you're
mm,
flirting and stuff like this, and this relationship might be happening. Other male colleagues are seeing what he can get away with you, but obviously you're flirting. Do you know what I mean? Like, you actually want his attention.
yeah.
I think there's an interesting line where, oh, she's up for everything. Do you know what I mean? Because X smacked your ass and you were like, yeah, like, I like him. He can do that kind of thing. But
I
at the
do that.
same time,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
it's
exactly. Like,
it's such a sort of it's a crazy kind of environment to live and work on a boat. Like, to live and work with people all the time, share a tiny cabin, share a tiny area. It's always going to create weird situations, really, because it's not normal. People aren't used to living like that. People aren't used to living right on top of each other with nowhere to go on your own. Really, it's no wonder these sort of things happen on board. Okay, it's a crazy environment. It's a crazy job. It's a lovely job. It's
it,
brilliant, but yeah, yeah, it's not like
it
the
is.
rest of
No, it's not. It is your relaxed space, your wind down space, your professional space. All of these things merge into one. But I found, I just when we started the survey and stuff, it's just like, how what is the interaction on board? Thinking about the bigger picture, the
it.
female role on board, how it's perceived, how we're perceived. Um, Obviously, with yourself going onto deck when there was no females going on deck, you
Yeah.
know, um, obviously, like, the boat that you were on accepted it, but was it viewed? Did you get any pushback from anywhere when you were on deck?
Yeah, I used to get quite a lot of comments. One of my captains used to call me Soapy Tits, so that was fun.
That's lovely.
But it was like okay. It was a smaller boat. It was a bit nice, a 40 meter. But anyway, that was good. And then on the bigger boat, yeah, I mean, it was very much. I don't know whether that was just a hierarchy thing anyway, because I was a junior, and it was me and the other junior, and sort of the more senior guys would have the better jobs. We'd have all the menial tasks. Scrub that cheek some more, get in that corner. And I think that's just sort of the luck of draw. I don't think that was specifically because I was a woman. And I think I was quite respected, because I was carrying the big heavy fenders, I was down in the anchor locker. I didn't feel that much sort of sexism because I think I was quite strong, and wasn't a sort of a weak girl in character or in like strength. So I think it wasn't the sort of person that they could sort of push around, I guess.
But you'd already seen the role anyway. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just trying to go straight in on deck. You'd kind of viewed it from working on the interior anyway. So you kind of go with,
In the
you've
middle.
seen how it runs, so you can, you know what to tolerate and not.
Exactly. And I've been in the industry for a while then. It wasn't like it was my first job. So, I think it's quite different when you first join a boat because you don't know the rules. Like the rules are different. Like, not the actually written down rules, but the rules of how things work on yachts. It's not the same as in the outside world. And quite often these people, they join, they're really young as well. So if I look back myself, I was so young when I joined yachting. I was probably quite old for yachting. I was 23 when I joined. Lots of them were joining when they're only
Old,
18
yeah.
or I joined when I was 18 or 19. I can't even imagine. You think you're so grown up, but I actually was like an actual child. No offense to the 18 or 19-year-olds listening, but in my opinion, looking back, I am a completely different person than I was when I was 18 to how I am now. Post kids and all that kind of stuff. We're just a completely different person.
Yeah, it's slightly different, slightly different. I'd like to think that there is an 18-year-old in there somewhere,
Yeah,
constantly moaning about the fact that I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Not do anything fun anymore.
buddy. No.
So obviously, we're talking about junior roles and stuff like that. Now you've obviously branched out on your own,
Mhm.
um, and obviously resting on a lot of experience. What is your approach? What did you want to do and have that freedom to do, which, in the traditional, especially the larger companies, can be a bit difficult to do?
Um, I guess my sort of inspiration for going on my own is I've always been quite ambitious and I've always quite fancied having my own company at some point. I just had to sort of get the balls to do it, essentially. And what I stand by is that I believe that I have a very thorough recruitment process. Like I really get to know my candidates. So I spend a lot of time on video calls, half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, depends on if it's a chatter or not. Really having a chat with them, like we are on this podcast, really getting to know them, finding out about their hobbies, finding out about their future plans and all of that stuff. And I think what that does is that really comes through when I write the presentations because I do know the candidates. I've properly spoken to them. I'd like to make friends with some of them. It's sometimes I have some
Mm.
lovely conversations and I meet some fantastic people. But I think it's not really about what's changed since I was working at other companies. It's just the freedom to do it on my own in my own terms, to make my own decisions, to do things how I want, to do things to the level that I believe is required without it's everyone has their own standards and things like that. But I like to be able to be accountable for all of the recruitment. So I know that everyone I put forward has been thoroughly vetted. Everyone has been video called. Everyone is definitely interested in the job. I have all the information of the job. I have a lot of information because I make sure that I call the captain and I ask lots and lots of questions, culture questions, longevity questions, all that kind of stuff. So I feel that when I do put someone forward, it really is a good match because I feel that having had a good conversation with the HOD or the captain, I know what they want and I know what this person wants, and then it's getting the match between the two. And that's the tricky bit. It's not about sending loads of CVs and hoping one hits. It's about a considered approach where you take the time to really only present the ones which you think are actually going to be a really good fit. So, but I think that's what everybody does, really. It's not really any different to having your own company to have to work with someone else. It's just nice to do it on your own and do things how you want.
Well, I think like we've said that the nature of the industry has changed, and with what you're offering, it's more of a headhunter. Do you know what I mean? Like though we're like you said, it's not just a hit and hope scenario anymore. They want
Mm.
more detail because obviously in this new, world that we live in, mental health, longevity, like crew want to know what the boat's providing. Crew want to know what the atmosphere, is it a party boat? Is it they're very aware, and especially the level that you're hiring at as well, like the HODs. They've been around the block. They want more information before they jump because there is a lot of there's more crew than positions at the moment for the higher levels, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah. And I see a lot of really good candidates that will still be on my books 3 months later, and they just haven't found the right job for them, or someone else has beaten them to the post. But they're not necessarily there's anything wrong with them. They're great, but it's just the number of positions to the number of candidates. I think more and more people coming in the industry, and it has been like that for many years now, building, 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 and all these people are rising. And then there's only, it's like a triangle, isn't it? There's loads of people at the bottom, and then at the top there's only a few positions, so it's always going to be a problem. The more people we have at the bottom, but then again, there are loads of new boats coming out, so lots of boats are being built every year. So there's more and more positions coming. But again, I don't think the popularity is going to decrease in yachting. I think it's just going to continue to grow because, who doesn't want to work on a yacht? I mean, lots of people, but I think
No,
it's a job, isn't it? Especially as a young person, I
no.
think.
But also with the profession, like obviously the boats are larger. A buzzword is the professionalization of the industry because they're dealing with bigger boats, larger crew members,
Mm-hmm.
more pressure being put on heads of department as well, more
Mm-hmm.
formal training needed. Um, I'd probably say that's a slight culture change from traditional sailors. Do you know what I mean? The way it was back in the day, kind of
Definitely.
thing. They are expected now to do more paperwork. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that kind of wild. It still is, but like not anywhere near like it was.
There's so many movements towards improving the quality of training and things on board, and then people's desire to do the training. In my day, you didn't need to do any of the training. There wasn't much around. You might do a silver service course or like a stewardess course, but there wasn't any of this, like all these lovely guest programs, all this leadership, all these mixology, all these fantastic courses which you can now do. And I think to level yourself up, I'm particularly talking about the interior actually, because obviously the deck have got quite a solid route. They've had a solid route for a long time, but the interior is now, I think it's fantastic that they're actually putting things in places so that we can have the same kind of route as the deck, that we can get the same kind of qualifications under our belt, which I think when with the industry that's so populated for the HODs, if you can start getting these courses under your belt as well, these are the things that are going to make you stand out from other people. I think it's important to invest, especially if you're trying to take it seriously in your career. There's a lot of great courses to do, aren't there?
There is a lot of Do you think boats should pay for courses?
I think they should pay for progression. Progression. So I think I think you have to give some sort of a commitment, because obviously they're not going to pay for a course and you're just going to leave. So I think it's quite good when they do one where perhaps you pay 50% and then they pay the other 50%. After you've been on board for a year or something like that. Because I think if you do the course, if the boat pays for the courses, then people are more encouraged to stay because they think I'm getting something back from this. And I got this great training course and that was fantastic and I learned that and then I was able to progress up to another position. So yeah, I think it's but not all boats have the budget for that. I guess it's more the bigger boats.
I suppose it's like how serious they want crew longevity. Do you know what I mean? Like, do they want to invest and keep? Which I think, to be fair to most yachts, um, they've never really been that shy about investing in the bridge.
Yeah,
It's more likely that you would get qualifications paid for or subsidized by the bridge, time off because it's, they are the formal requirement courses. I hope in the future that obviously that just spreads to every department,
I think
like it should really be.
I think there's a lot more emphasis on the importance of training in the interior and the importance of training the soft skills. So not just the have you got your COC or have you got that management training, have you got that leadership training as a captain to lead that team, because only I don't know, less than 50% of the job is driving the boat. The rest of it is managing a team, managing like a little company on board. So there needs to be, and I believe there is a lot more push for that for people to have those soft skill training as well.
What do you envisage for the, future when it comes to recruitment? What do you think will be the important factors that are going to
Mm.
become more and more common?
Well, I think that we can't escape the fact about AI. I'm sure that there will be some effect on recruitment with AI, but I don't think you can ever take away the human touch of for maybe sourcing CVs. Maybe for the junior roles it might play a part in that, but I think for the more senior roles, I do still believe that the yachts will want someone to have that human element to really understand, because it's not about fixing someone with the right qualifications and popping them on a boat. That's the half of it. The other half is the attitude, the personality, the fit, and that's the bit that I think that AI can't replace. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because it'd be a bit rubbish to start a business in 10 years' time, find that AI is taking it over, as done with many other businesses. But recruitment, yeah, I think it's a drive to become more and more professional, because there are a lot of recruitment houses out there, absolutely. But it's like with any businesses, it's who does it better, you know.
I do think AI has got, I said at the beginning, AI's got a big part to play because, like I said, validating certificates, C miles, all of this kind of stuff is already being developed and being implemented and in a lot of ways. But I do think you're 100% correct. The human element, being in a room with someone or speaking to them at length, you get a feeling, and AI won't be able to get the feeling. Just going back to obviously a female protection type thing,
Mm,
um, we've all been around guys that just feel a bit creepy. Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean? They may not have done anything to you, but you just get a weird vibe. Do you know what I
Especially
mean? Or
feeling, your intuition tells you something. You listen to what your body says. It sometimes reads things that you haven't actually processed in your brain, I think. What have you found in the survey that's been most well, what's struck you as the most bizarre things that have come out of the survey, or has it been quite as you expected?
well, yeah, we're just going through all of the data now. I think one of the things that we will talk to recruiters about is the amount of individuals that are known. And I think where recruiters will be coming to the conversation, and I know lots of individuals
Mm-hmm.
like yourself throughout the industry, they could probably list 10 or 20 individuals that they know or have heard of incidences, but because obviously you can't blacklist someone, there's this weird nobody's going to do anything kind of no man's land.
Yeah.
I think what the data is going to show is we can't really do that anymore. So
Mm,
although there might not be a criminal case, if you've got 15 women that have said something about the same guy over a 5-year period and they've all
mm-hmm.
had interactions completely isolated, the industry really needs to take a look at itself. And like what you said with doing recruitment and having honesty and integrity, I don't know how they don't have a they might not publish a blacklist, but they should
Mm,
have one.
mm.
Because what is happening is women are being put at risk.
Absolutely, but the problem is, if somebody hearsay, nothing's proven. If you start to compile a list between the recruiters of people that have hearsay
Yeah.
on things, and there's the huge legal implications, like how huge.
There is. I mean,
What can
100%.
do? I don't know. But you're right. There's something needs to be
This is
done
this
because.
is the conversation. This is the conversation that needs to be had because it's just not, I don't think, feasible to hide behind that we might have a legal challenge if
Hmm. Hmm.
we are seen to show this person that they are not like show them the blacklisted, but doing nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to wash for much longer because we are in an industry, unfortunately, which is just the perfect hiding place for predators, and they're getting away with it. So yes, law, obviously all companies want to make sure that they cover themselves legally, but if you all say it all at the same time and you've all heard it from different sources, there's no smoke without fire. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about a one-off. We're talking about somebody that is well known and been known for years. I think that's
Mm,
one of the other things that come out of the survey that shocked me is years, years and years and years. So where does this is what I hope the survey will bring. Where does accountability start?
yeah.
As a collective. And that's everybody. So that's management companies, recruiters, crew on board. Like, where do we just go, enough, enough? Because it's quite insane the amount of incidences that I've just got recorded. And we're
Mm,
talking about a very small pool of women. Do you know what I mean? And they're recording nearly twice as many incidences. So that's 2 incidences per woman doing the survey.
that's crazy. That's absolutely
So,
crazy. So interesting to get all these voices together. to make some change, because everybody knows that the things go on board, and people think, oh yeah, it happens to some people, but now when they see the facts, it's like, well, actually no, this isn't just happening a little bit, this is happening a lot, and something needs
Yeah,
to be done. So
yeah.
I think it's a fantastic idea, and that's I certainly hope to be part of the process and bringing things forward and doing what we can. But as I say, as a collective, as one.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think one of the things that I hope that comes out of the survey is that every section of so management get together and talk about the things that the obviously survey is showing and reflect what they're doing and where they can tighten up. And recruiters will be the same, as well as captains and everything else. So it really it's really hopefully you're just going to show light on process. And like
Yeah.
I said, talking to individuals like yourself and across the industry, there are people out there that are very well known for their behavior. And like I said, the fear of a court case is obviously holding everybody back because they don't want to be the one that does that. But how
Mm-hmm.
many women need to be affected by that one individual before we go, okay, then, well, maybe he's, potentially raped 5
Yes.
women. He doesn't deserve to be in the industry anymore. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
One, it's where is the line? One rape, 2, 3, 5,
Yeah.
25.
Yeah. And when's it going to end? Yeah, no, it's certainly
Well,
it's a very challenging topic for sure, and it's something that I don't know how we're going to find the resolution, but something that over talks amongst many people. Hopefully, some ideas will come up, and hopefully, there will be something to do that we can help protect our future. Maybe our daughters might go into yachting. Hopefully, it'll make it a
well, yeah.
safe, more that's a process driven place. When something like that happens, there need to be better.
Accountability and process is basically what we're trying to create, and like
Mm-hmm.
we both got daughters, by the time our daughters are 18 years old, do we
Mm-hmm.
still want the environment to be able to hide guys that have been affecting women's lives for a decade, doing terrible things to women for over 10 years, and that
Brilliant.
everybody knows about, but we're just going to let them
But nobody's going to do anything.
continue?
Yeah. No.
So I think that's, these are the conversations, and like, somebody like yourself and other like-minded recruitment companies going, right, okay, well, yes, there's legal implications, but we've got to try and do something, anything.
Mm-hmm.
If there is an individual that's got, I don't know, 25 accounts periodically, someone's got to kind of make a decision to go, we've got a standard. Like, you know,
Yeah.
the
We've got to make.
industry should have a standard.
Yeah.
Rapists
Yes.
don't apply. I think that's a basic standard.
That's exactly right. But this goes back to references as well, because you know probably in some of these cases this isn't being mentioned in their references, because how are they getting new jobs? Or maybe the references aren't
Yeah.
being checked. But if
I
something
think
like
it
that board, I mean, is it again a legal thing for the captain to say there was a report of this on board, but nothing was confirmed? Then if they then say that in the reference, and that's sort of, again, it's another.
Well, this is the thing. You've got, we've got, a lot of the additional comments. We got lots of women say that they were kind of held hostage because they weren't allowed. They wanted to leave the boat after an incident, but if they wanted a good reference, they can't say anything. So,
Yeah.
from recruiters' perspective, you're putting, you're talking to a girl that's probably just gone through a massive trauma and she's
Mm-hmm.
being blackmailed because of her reference to
Yeah.
not tell you about it. So,
Yeah.
it's in your interest for these things to be dealt with properly, because she might get on to board the next boat and completely have a massive breakdown because she's not dealt with the trauma. So it's in everybody's
Yeah.
interest, that these things. So yeah, like I said, I'm hoping that the survey will create conversations between companies like yourself. But like, your approach to things, AI will take a lot of the legwork out of recruitment, but the human touch, I think, it's a bit like everything, an AI can create a song, but it's not going to have that magic, which unfortunately only humans, we've tried to bottle this magic
Yes.
in, whether it's creating the most amazing dish or the amazing song or a piece of artwork. Nobody knows what will resonate and what will land. And AI won't work that out either. So I think we'll be fine.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not.
think the important thing about recruitment is the human element. It's about the relationships that you made. It's about the trust that you get from working with the same captain over many years, the same boats, the trust they put in you from that relationship that you've made, from giving those truthful presentations, warts and all, giving those references, warts and all, getting to really know those candidates. And it's all relationship, and recruitment's a relationship business. And, it's how good are you at making relationships, and who do you enjoy working with, basically, and do they
Mm.
deliver what you've asked them for in a timely fashion, in a trustful and truthful way, with integrity. I think it's just the key underlying thing that you must have as a recruiter to be successful, I believe.
I believe that too. Long may it continue. I think, the industry's going through a metamorphosis of changes at the moment. So hopefully it turns into a lot nicer, safer, more enjoyable, more professional industry on the other side. Um,
Absolutely.
so I haven't done this for a while. Can you I asked you like one of your crazy stories from being on board. Can you tell me something crazy about being a recruiter? What's the weirdest thing that's happened to you when a weird reference, a weird request? What's the weirdest thing that's happened in your years of recruitment?
Years of recruitment. Well, you certainly get a lot of really weird references. And I particularly enjoy the detective work of a reference. When you get something, you think, something's afoot, and then you dig around, and sometimes the numbers, the phone numbers aren't working. Oh, that's a surprise. The email address looks funny. It's that can be quite fun. Also irritating because you've worked quite hard on a candidate and you've interviewed them and you think they're fabulous, and then boo.
Oh,
um, there's a lot of fake. There's a lot of fakery. There's a lot of fake CVs. We started to notice 3 or 4 years ago a lot of fake CVs coming in, and they were mostly engineers um, from sort of Eastern Europe, and they would have quite similar formats. They would have like they would be briefly presented. Someone's made a lovely CV. They have done loads and loads of commercial work, and then they've had like one season on a boat. Sometimes a boat that no one's ever heard of. And the references would be weird. It would be, one of their friends or something, but they look very convincing. And now that's spreading, and we've seen them definitely in the deck department as well. I haven't yet to see a fake interior one yet, but that's not to say that they aren't there. But that's something that's to really be aware of, actually, because these people look fantastic on the CVs. And if you're not doing your reference checks properly, you might put one of these people on board. It doesn't mean that they're bad. They generally come from commercial backgrounds and they can't get a step in the door. So they pretend that they've been on a yacht so that they can then get another job on the yacht. So,
well, as long as they're not
there's
pretending about the qualifications, because I want an engineer that can actually fix an engine. Like that would just scare the crap out of me.
I guess another
Although,
one of the things I think is alarming is all the fake jobs. We used to see a lot of crew coming in, being like, "Oh, I've got this job," and then he said, "Can you send a picture of me?" I think one of them said, "Can you send a picture of her in sportswear, like in like a sports bra in shorts?" Because the owner wanted to see that. Many, many red flags, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Can you send a picture? The job's not real. Can you send some money? And I think that's sort of ramped up a bit as well. I think over the years, or maybe people talk
Facebook,
about it more.
Facebook jobs. No, don't do a Facebook job.
But you're a young person, you're desperate for your first job, you want to believe it's true. It sounds a bit dodgy, but oh, I really want the job. It's so hard because there's so much competition, and I feel for these young ones. It's normally the girls, to be honest. I feel for them because they think that they found this amazing job. It's an 80 meter. It's this, and that. I just need to send them some money and a couple of photos, and it's
What?
yeah, it's
Uh,
awful.
it is
The,
awful. But thank you so much for coming on again. Good luck with what you're doing. Not that you need much luck because it seems to be going amazingly, but yeah, I quite like the fact that you're your own boss because when I come to get all of these recruiters together, I know that there's at least one person on the table that sees things the way that
God.
I do.
Well, so fingers crossed. Let's see how things go.
No, it's been fabulous to hear what's going on with you. Thank you so much for joining us again on the podcast.
Thank you.
If anybody's looking for a job, obviously contact Sophie. She will point you in the right direction for sure. For you, dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, there's more on the way. But until next time, take